The Bidens are coordinating with the media, the administration, a coordination effort with the media, the Clintons, the Jussie Smollett case, the NYC mandates, all of that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Live from a dingy bunker completely cut off from the outside world except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. It is December 7th, year of our Lord 2021. The year's almost over. Everything was supposed to get better this year. There's still, 3 weeks left for the year to get totally good. Because remember, Joe Biden was going to come into office and everything was going to be fine. Everything's going to be hunky-dory, just totally dandy. That is not the case at all. A lot of interesting stories coming up. We're kind of switching up the way we do this kind of thing, and we're gonna run through a bunch of different headlines. First, I want to get to this: the favorite power couple of the United States. Just kidding. And by favorite, I mean literally the least favorite. The Clintons and the Clinton Foundation. Do you know about the Clinton Foundation? Well, it's unfortunately taken a huge hit in donations the last couple of years. It has lost, the Clinton Foundation, donations are down 93% since their 2009 peak. Got a really interesting piece in an opinion section from Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch in the Daily Caller talking about the Clintons' total and utter collapse of their charitable organization. Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch writes in the Daily Caller, when one of the most recognizable nonprofits in the world loses 75% of its contributions over a 4-year period, there are typically some investigatory reports written on what went wrong. That isn't the case with the Clinton Foundation. The foundation received $62.9 million in 2016. What was going on in 2016? I feel like something important was happening then. We'll think about it in a second. But in 2020, it only received $16.3 million in 2020. The Clinton Foundation, like I said, has lost 93% of its donations since its $250 million peak in 2009. I wonder, I feel like something happened. They're doing such great charitable work. I don't know what possibly could have happened. It couldn't have been that it was an influence peddling scheme around Washington, D.C. No, it couldn't have been that. Must be something going on. Tom Fitton continues, that's because most Beltway insiders know that the Clinton Foundation's primary purpose to serve as a platform for Hillary Clinton's political operation while lining the Clintons' pockets by trading influence and money. What? It was? Who would have guessed that? I seriously have friends who probably think that the Clinton Foundation is an actual charitable organization that does good around the world. And who knows, maybe they do some good. But when Hillary Clinton's getting $20 million for a 30-minute speech at some big, massive bank that is inevitably going to get regulated by the federal government, I would imagine that money isn't entirely going to help poor kids in Africa. No, it's no secret around Washington, D.C., or around literally anywhere that the Clinton Foundation is a money grab for formerly the most powerful couple on the planet. That is why donations spiked when Hillary was Secretary of State, and most of the world thought she was destined to become president. And then they cratered after she lost. That's what was going on in 2016. Hillary Clinton was running for president, and she lost. Lo and behold, like the article says, 75% of its contributions over a 4-year period were lost, going from $62.9 million in 2016 to $16.3 million in 2020. You know what? It's such a good organization, such a fantastic cause to be donating to the Clinton Foundation. It's so difficult for me to see such a cratering loss. Kevin Thurm, the CEO of the Thurm, T-H-U-R-M, Thurm, The CEO of the Clinton Foundation tried to play off the 2020 decline as pandemic related. In a letter he wrote, the 2020 was a difficult year for philanthropy. Across the sector, resources were stretched thinly and fundraising activities were impacted. Here's the thing. This argument doesn't explain the tens of millions of foundation money lost between 2016 and 2019, and also ignores charitable giving that was up by 5.1% all across America that year. So the Clinton Foundation CEO is trying to blame the fact that, 2020 was tough on foundations. Really difficult for us. Giving was down across America, except for the fact that it was not. Giving across America was up 5.1%. So no, that doesn't account for the massive cratering losses that the Clinton Foundation took in regards to its donations. That is what it is. Look, is anybody surprised? Let me know if you are surprised. Let me know in the comment section. Just so you know, commenting on this sort of thing, clicking the little like emojis right here, clicking the little love thing if you love it, laughing, it's hilarious. If you're mad, click the mad thing, and clicking the share button. All of those things help us reach a bigger audience. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, taking the time, it's super. It doesn't cost you anything. Super easy to do. So go ahead and click that right there. Let me see if there's any comments that I can read. I generally can't read a lot of these comments. Scott says, "Let's go, Brandon." Joni said, "The Clintons help no one." I would agree with that. The Clinton Foundation did no good for just about everyone. No good for everyone. Mark says, "Trump 2024." A lot of comments coming in regarding the Hillary Clinton campaign. Mark Johnson says Hillary should be in prison. Look, I don't know about that, but if you say so, maybe we'll see. Scott says next to the Bidens. Look, Scott, there are a lot of interesting things circulating around the Biden family. Biden's brother, I think his name is Jim Hunter, the Bobolinsky guy, who's been out and proud about, the Bidens were doing some pretty sketchy stuff. Hunter in China. So, that's, we'll see how that turns out. I want to get to this. This is fascinating. And again, comes as a shock to absolutely freaking no one. The White House is working with the media. This is Brianna Lyman reporting from the Daily Caller. Media companies meet in secret with Biden White House to discuss more favorable economic coverage. You don't say. The entire media seems to be a wing of the Democratic Party, and this reporting doesn't seem to be out of step with that notion. The White House has been working with major media outlets behind the scenes to reshape coverage on the economic crisis, according to CNN. Look, it's early on. We'll see if this continues, but I feel like CNN has kind of found its backbone. Remember CNN back in the day, 25 years ago, was like the standard in like hard straight line news. I'm old enough to remember Anderson Cooper moderating, I believe it was the 2012 debate, Republican debate, and he did a fantastic job. This is, again, not that long ago. CNN was a respectable news outlet. They are not anymore at all. See your Chris Cuomo's, your Don Lemons, your Brian Stelter. All of those people are. Is Brian Stelter on CNN or MSNBC? I forget. I never really watched them. I think he's CNN. But all of those people weren't the way they are now back then. But maybe CNN has found their backbone. Jake Tapper, if you haven't caught his act, generally a pretty moderate lefty also on CNN, hit China hard. And remember, that wasn't a thing that you were able to do in your lefty media. So we'll see what happens regarding CNN. But this, again, report is coming from CNN. The administration has been briefing major newsrooms over the past week while discussing the newsroom trends pertaining to jobs creation, economic growth, supply chains, and more. Remember, earlier, did we report on it? It was late last week. The jobs report came out on Thursday, and they missed big. I think the Dow Jones was reporting something like, we're expecting 500,000 jobs being created. They hit like 200,000. So like less than half of the jobs that they were expecting to create were actually created. There's a hilarious clip. We didn't pull it because it's kind of old news. But Mika Brzezinski on Morning Joe told Jen Psaki live on air, because that's when the jobs report numbers broke, when Jen Psaki, the speaker, the White House press secretary, was on live TV and was like, shoot, well, I can't talk about that until 9:30. But that was a hilarious clip. So, yeah, the Biden administration reporting the jobs numbers have been dismal. It's been terrible for them. And the Biden administration is now apparently meeting with newsrooms to try and create a more favorable story for them. And you know why that's difficult for them to do? Because nothing they're doing is currently favorable to anyone. The administration has argued that the country's economy is in much better shape than it was last year. Dude, this is, again, relative to what? I don't know if you remember the whole pandemic thing last year, make the economy pretty dang bad. It was a pretty bad situation for everybody. So saying that it was better than last year isn't saying a lot. That's like saying you're better than the 2009 Cleveland Browns. Great. Good job. But this is interesting. Dana Milbank of the Washington Post seemed to be somewhat of a reasonable writer, I think, generally in a lot of cases, but not in this case. Dana Milbank of the Washington Post claimed Friday that the Biden administration has received unrelenting negative coverage when compared to President Donald Trump. Are you high? What? What are you talking about? The Biden administration has received unrelenting. Now, I'll tell you, yeah, the Biden administration has received a ton of negative coverage. Here's the thing. They seem to be deserving it, according to pretty much everyone left, right, and center. Obviously, even you're super woke. They're making the super woke mad with the whole Build Back Better thing. Bernie Sanders, again, wanted $6 trillion. Now it's down to like 1.5. It's actually $12 million. We won't get into that whole thing just right now. But even your super woke Bernie Sanders, they're mad the Biden administration isn't going far enough. Your moderate, normal Democrats, and they are out there, there are liberals out there that are normal, are thinking you're going way too far left. And obviously your conservative wing, who doesn't want change in the country because the country's fine and doesn't need the trillions of dollars of money spent that we don't have and don't need to spend, they're mad at him. Everybody is collectively upset with the Biden administration. Maybe that would explain some of the negative press. But again, Dana Milbank claiming that the Biden administration has received unrelenting negative coverage when compared to President Donald Trump. What? In what world were you living the last 4 years? Remember the whole Russia collusion thing that turned out to be a big nothing burger? Adam Schiff still, by the way, is still doing his thing. Nothing happened to him, regardless of, despite the fact that he was lying to people to their faces on camera for 4 freaking years. Which is, again, this is just a ridiculous thing to say. And I sometimes enjoy reading Dana Milbank stuff. So this is discouraging to find. The findings confirmed my fear. My colleagues, this is Dana Milbank again in the Washington Post, confirmed my fear. My colleagues in the media are serving as accessories to the murder of democracy, Milbank wrote. I think Dana Milbank is a woman. I actually don't know. I've only read it in print. So we'll see. I guess I'll check that out. I probably should have read into that a little bit more. After the honeymoon period of slightly positive coverage in the first 3 months of the year, Biden's press over the past 4 months has been as bad as, and for the time worse than, the coverage of President Trump received over the same 4 months in 2020. Yeah, here's the thing. That's not true at all. Just, again, absolutely ridiculous. Dana Milbank is a man, by the way. I just Googled that right now. I've only read it in print, writer for the Washington Post said some ridiculous thing. So the Biden administration is apparently coordinating with some of these bigger news outlets that are helping them curb the bad press that they're getting, deservedly so. I'm not going to read on with this. I am going to read this. This is interesting. A recent CBS YouGov poll found that 3 in 10 Americans think the country is doing somewhat well under Biden. Biden received higher disapproval ratings when polled among the economy, immigration, race relations, and inflation. So the polling would suggest the Biden administration is deserving of all of the quote-unquote negative coverage it's getting. Who would have guessed that? Besides everyone, I think everyone would have guessed that. I want to move on to this, the New York mandates. Are you following this story? This is a little bit nuts. Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, the world's largest communist. I believe Bill de Blasio is, in fact, the world's biggest communist. And I don't say that by policy standards. I'm sure there are people that are more communist than Bill de Blasio. I mean in stature. Bill de Blasio, to my knowledge, is the world's biggest communist. We'll get to that in just a quick second. I want to read what's actually going on in New York. It is pretty dang scary what's happening in New York right now, New York City. Bill de Blasio said the city will release specific rules. Okay, so if you haven't caught up to this, Bill de Blasio, mayor of New York, putting in a vaccine mandate for everybody that works in the private sector, all throughout New York. 8 million people in New York, vaccine mandate going to literally anyone who has a job there. Here's the thing. I think it is a political stunt. Bill de Blasio is out of office literally days after this goes into effect. Eric Adams, the mayor-elect, is not commenting on how he'll handle this vaccine mandate. He's saying he's going to take a look at it. But Bill de Blasio said that there's going to be mandates. He said the city will release specific rules on December 15th before the mandates take effect December 27th. Which again is days before he leaves office. So he's given people 12 days to comply with the rules that he's going to set. He's going to release the rules December 15th, and then 12 days later, we're going to implement them. That doesn't seem like a good way to do things. He said it will apply to in-person employees, but will not provide any details about enforcement, probably because he doesn't have any way to enforce it. This, again, is Democrats widely poll well when it comes to vaccine mandates. In other words, Democrats polled are in favor of vaccine mandates. Bill de Blasio, mayor of New York, has bigger aspirations for his political career. If you don't remember, Bill de Blasio ran for president. Generally, mayors of New York think that they would run for president. Giuliani was the same way. Mike Bloomberg, same way. Bill de Blasio, they're all the same. They think, well, I can run for president. I'm the mayor of the biggest city in the country. And then nobody else outside of New York City and your DC Beltway crowd really cares at all about the mayor of New York, and they tend to burn out and do dismally in the polling when they run for president. But anyways, Bill de Blasio ran for president when Joe Biden ran for president, this last cycle in 2020. He has higher aspirations. He wants to run for governor of the state. Remember, Kathy Hochul is appointed, so he's not going to have to run against a powerhouse Cuomo family. And yes, I said that. The Cuomo family are political powerhouses. For Bill de Blasio, nobody was happier about the Andrew Cuomo resignation than Bill de Blasio, because now he gets to say, I'm running for governor. And the reason that he's putting these mandates into effect that he's not going to be able to enforce and is going to get immediately overturned the day he leaves office, probably by Mayor-elect Eric Adams. The reason he's doing it, well, if he can't enforce it and it's not actually going to happen, why is he doing it? Because it polls super well and he's trying to run for governor. That's the reason why he's doing this. But regardless, the fact that anyone would be in support of this is absolutely crazy. He said there will be no weekly testing option. So everybody has to get the jab, everybody. It will roughly apply to 184,000 businesses in the city. And this is where I get off on this sort of stuff. You want to talk about policy that disproportionately affects minority communities? Here it is. Bill de Blasio in New York saying that you have to have the COVID shot in order to work. If you've looked at any of the numbers, any of the stats that have come out from the CDC or anywhere, Black people, brown people, Hispanic people, way less likely to get the COVID shot. So if you're going to make a policy that requires the shot in order to do certain things, what you're effectively doing is banning those Black people, brown people, other minority people from doing those things. That's what effectively you're doing. If you make the COVID shot a requirement to do certain things, and black, brown people don't have the COVID shot at nearly as high as a percentage, then effectively you're banning black and brown people from doing those things. You see how that might be a little bit problematic? But again, that's not taken into consideration with the super woke of the country. This was a tweet that I found. In the Bronx, there's a 15% unemployment. 28% of residents will no longer be eligible to work on January 27th. So, almost a third of Bronx residents won't be able to work with this vaccine mandate, including 44% of young black adults as a result of Mayor de Blasio's vaccine mandate for the private sector. Now, read that again. In the Bronx, with 15% unemployment, 28% of residents will no longer be eligible to work on December 27th, including 44% of young black adults as a result of de Blasio's vaccine mandate for the private sector. Again, you want to talk about racist outcomes? Here it is. Your Democrat leader of the biggest city in the world is instituting what a lot of people would call racist policies. The jab applies to all private sector workers. This is, again, getting more and more ridiculous. Kids 5 to 11 must show proof of 1 dose to enter restaurants and other venues. Even though kids, thank God, by the way, are not nearly as affected as the old or the out of shape by this disease, kids have to show proof of 1 dose to enter restaurants or other venues. Everyone 12 and up is required to show 2 vaccine doses. 12-year-olds required to be fully vaccinated to 2 doses, which I would imagine doesn't take into account the J&J or any of the other stuff. Look, if you want the shot, get the shot. But requiring kids, and also, let me get to this. Unvaxxed kids 5 to 11 may not participate in extracurricular activities. Again, 44% of young black adults in the city are not getting the jab. If those people have kids, if minorities have kids, do you think if they're not going to get the shot, they're going to get their kids the shot? When, again, effectively what you're doing is banning black and brown kids from participating in extracurricular activities at school. Brown versus Board of Education, anyone? Really? Like, I don't know. There is some funny to this. It's not necessarily funny and not really regarding the COVID shot mandate, but it is further staking my claim that Mayor Bill de Blasio is the world's biggest communist. Again, not necessarily by policy stance, but by sheer stature. I believe Bill de Blasio is the world's tallest communist. By pure stature, I believe Bill de Blasio is the world's biggest communist. Bill de Blasio, if you don't know, stands at 6'5". Vladimir Putin, another world communist leader, 5'7". Bill de Blasio takes the cake as the world's biggest communist. Xi Jinping of China, 5'11". Turkey's Erdogan is 6'1", getting a little bit close. Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela, 6'3". Again, Bill de Blasio trumps all of them in becoming the world's biggest communist. Kim Jong-un is 5'7". Miguel Diaz-Canel of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel of Cuba is 6 foot, I think. I couldn't find a photo with him, but I did find a picture of him shaking Xi Jinping's hand, and it looks like he's about an inch taller than the 5'11" communist leader of China. So, with those numbers in place, I believe that I am confirmed in saying that Bill de Blasio is, in fact, the world's biggest communist. Check back for more relevant and hard-hitting news. That's that. I want to see if there's any, let me see if I can bring these on. Eddie, I agree with you. Stand up to tyranny. Yep. Let's see. Joanne says, children do not need the jab. It's dangerous. Leave our children alone, you idiots. Some personal insults hurled her way, but I understand the sentiment, Joanne. Bill de Blasio. Raymond says they are crazy left if they elect de Blasio as the governor of New York. Yeah, Raymond, I would probably agree with you. But the thing is, they are that crazy left. And you also got to remember, too, your East Coast Democrats are different than your West Coast Democrats. I don't know where you are, Raymond, but California Democrats are super, super woke, super, super liberal. Not to say that New York City Democrats aren't, but in New York, in the state of New York, you remember you got your whole Union Democrat mashup that can still go there. So he's trying to get the super woke. He already has the union mob tied together. So there's that. People in NYC don't like him at all, says Lucille. Rick says de Blasio turned the big apple into the rotten apple. Yeah, Rick, agree with you right there. That's good. Let me see. Let's get to this. This is the Juicy Smollett thing. Have you been following this trial? This is not important at all in terms of being able to follow it for any sort of knowledge that you might receive from following this case or following this trial, but it is hilarious. So if you're following, hopefully it's entertainment value only. The Juicy Smollett is unintentionally hilarious. This is the unintentionally hilarious trial of Jussie Smollett. Yesterday in court, I'm going to read this from the AP. Former Empire actor Jussie Smollett denied Monday that he staged the anti-gay racist attack on himself, testifying at his trial that there was no hoax and that he was a victim of a hate crime in downtown Chicago neighborhood. Smollett, who faces charges that he lied to Chicago police about the January 2019 attack, sought to refute damaging testimony from two brothers last week. Remember, the two brothers took the stand and said, he paid us $3,500 and gave us $100 for supplies and told us to do exactly this. And he says, no, that didn't happen. He's saying that they did attack him. And so, well, let me read further. Excuse me. They said Smollett, who is gay and black, orchestrated the hoax to get publicity, giving them $100 for supplies and instructing them to place a noose around his neck and yell homophobic slurs. They also said Smollett gave them $3,500 check to carry it out. Smollett appeared calm throughout the several hours of testimony, yada, 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 yada. Asked by his defense attorney if he ever gave so I'm going to try and pronounce these two brothers' last names, but this is tough. Asundaro, if he gave them a payment of any kind for the hoax, Smollett replied, never. The attorney asked if he planned the hoax. He said, no, said Smollett. There was no hoax. He said, absolutely not, when asked if he gave the brothers $100 to pay for supplies for the attack. Smollett said that he assumed the person who attacked him was white because he used racial slurs and shouted, MAGA country! An apparent reference to the then President Trump's campaign slogan, Make America Great Again! The brothers, who are also black, testified last week that they instructed him, that Jussie Smollett instructed them to yell MAGA country during the fake assault. So here's what I think is hilarious about this. I think it's hilarious to play out in your head or even verbally what needed to happen to make this story true. If this story were true, here's what would have had to happen. You would have had to have, first of all, this would have been a tough beat for these super racist white supremacists. First, it's 2:00 in the morning. It is freezing outside in Chicago. They've got the night shift, these racist white supremacists. All right, Hank, we got to go out and patrol the streets. We got the night shift. Hank says, oh, Jim, I don't feel up to it today. Yeah, hey, Hank, we got to do it. We got to patrol the area. We have to do our due diligence as white supremacists. Okay, let's get out there. Okay, don't forget your MAGA hat and make sure you bring the noose with us to patrol the streets of Chicago at 2:30 in the morning in the freezing cold. Okay, yeah. Also, again, this is all what would have needed to happen if this story were true. Have you brushed up on Empire, the TV show? Yes. We have to know if one of those actors who happens to also be gay and black is walking the streets so we can identify him and beat him up. None of this story makes any sense to anybody. The things that would have had to have happened are ridiculous if this story were true. Make sure you bring your MAGA hat and wear it and yell MAGA country so we can be clearly identifiable to the police. But it's just ridiculous that anybody even believed this story in the first place. Kamala Harris tweeted, "Full support. I met Jussie Smollett. He's an upstanding person, other than the fact that he is not." That's pretty much all of that. He's denying it in court. Look, if I don't even know how this went to trial. If you're Jussie Smollett, the last thing that I wanted to do, if I were him, the last thing that I would want to do is remind America of how dumb I am. It's been years. It's out of sight, out of mind. Dude, just settle in court. It'd be a small blip on like the second or third page of the paper, if anybody even reads the paper anymore. What's a paper? Well, it's a website that they used to print out on paper for some reason. Anyway, it'd be like the third page. Nobody would see it. Jussie Smollett settles for whatever, settles out of court for some, I don't know, send me to prison if I'm him. The last thing I want is to remind the American people how much of a dumb person, a dumb donkey I am. Yeah, so that's that. Well, if you follow that case, we'll see. I wanted to read this. We won't cover this a lot because we've been covering it day in, day out. But I did want to read this hilarious piece from, I believe it was Jonathan Turley, in The Hill of all places. Actually, we got a really interesting Hill piece for tomorrow. I think I promised it today, but it'll be tomorrow. The Hill, not a conservative-leaning outlet, took a pretty interesting stand regarding Trump's tax policy. We'll get to that tomorrow. But listen to this. This is from Jonathan Turley. Again, this is both informative but also hilarious. Crime is raging across the country, from violent attacks to brazen shoplifting to mob smash and grab attacks. The White House this week had a simple answer for this, for the cause of this rising lawlessness. It was not defund the police efforts or more restrictive police policies or prosecutors. It wasn't any of those things. It was the familiar scourge cited in debates ranging from infrastructure to supply chain increases to tax increases. It was the pandemic, said the White House. Why is crime increasing? Well, it's the pandemic. The supply chain, it's also the pandemic. Infrastructure problems, it's also the pandemic. Tax increases, also the pandemic. The pandemic now seems to have reached the mythic level. I should be able to read. I do this for a living. I should be able to read out loud. The pandemic now seems to have reached the mythic levels of gods who once were blamed for everything that went wrong in life. He goes on to list some of the mythical Greek gods that were blamed for everything. The pandemic has reached mythical level god status, says Jonathan Turley. For politicians, it's useful to have a lurking Loki to explain the social problems that are not really there that are resulting in their failures. The Loki factor is evident in the press conference week in, week out, when Fox News correspondent Peter Doocy asks about the rising level of lawlessness seen in major cities such as New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. Does the president still think this is up because of the pandemic? White House press secretary says many people have conveyed that. Yes, many people have conveyed it. But that's that. The White House, we've been talking about the smash and grabs. We showed videos. We've seen all of this sort of stuff. Regarding the smash and grabs around the country. The White House is saying, well, it's pandemic related. That's all I have to say about that. That's going to do it for us today. If you haven't already, you can head on over to, actually, this is a good time to show these bad boys. How do you like the shirt, the Capitalism Rocks shirt? If you like that or any of the other hilarious t-shirts, you can get the Joe Biden catchphrase t-shirt at capitalistpropaganda.us. If you want it in time for Christmas, you got to order now. You can go to any of these. You can get the Let's Go Brandon t-shirt. You can get the what? Joe Biden, the corruptifornia. You're welcome. Love capitalism. Just the capitalism t-shirt. Capitalism rocks. Gas prices higher than Hunter Biden. You can get all of those t-shirts you can get them for a Christmas present. They make a fantastic Christmas present. You can get them at capitalistpropaganda.us. They're very moderately priced, and if you order now, you can get them in time for Christmas. That is huge. You can get, again, the Capitalism Rocks t-shirt. You can get the Joe Biden what t-shirt in time for Christmas. It's super easy. You know that you have relatives that would love one of these hilarious t-shirts. Head on over to capitalistpropaganda.us. You can grab them. You can also head on over to any of my social media platforms. Follow me on social media. Have a conversation. There's a lot of people that send me a lot of messages. I really appreciate them. At Jobob on Instagram. Just type in Jobob, Jobob on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere you can find me. There's not many Jobobs out there. Yeah. So you'll be able to find me on anywhere. You can also buy any of those hilarious t-shirts on any of those platforms. That's going to do it for us. We got a really interesting couple stories that we save for tomorrow. This is interesting. Tammy brings up an interesting point. All of these distractions to turn your eye. What's up with the Ghislaine Maxwell trial? Yeah, maybe we'll hit on that tomorrow, Tammy. Get some what's going on. There's no cameras in that one because it's a federal hearing, federal trial. But we'll see if we can touch on that a little bit tomorrow, Tammy. Appreciate the reminder. So that's going to do it for us. We'll see you right back here tomorrow, same time, same place. Caller Live. My name is Jobob. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless America.